I'm looking at a TBS1072B oscilloscope released by Tektronix in February of 2014, and this is a basic entry oscilloscope, color 2-channel. I don't think it comes in 4 channels yet, but I would imagine that it's going to be replacing the 2000-1000 series scope. The most outstanding thing about it is it has a really nice display. I mean, it's excellent. It's better than like a DPO-2000. It's a 800 by 640, I think, display, or 480, 800 by 480 display, active matrix, and it's pretty sweet. The menu system is more like the DPOs. I think they're getting rid of the 68,000 based Linux software and sticking with the PowerPC. So that's why this guy, the firmware on this thing is 34 megabytes versus, let's see, we got unit. So the firmware on this thing, just showing you a little bit of the menu system here, is 34 megabytes versus on this it's 3.4 megabytes for the firmware upgrades, and it is a little much for this scope right now. They've been doing a lot of firmware upgrades on this since it came out in February. I'm on version 2.52, and there's a couple things that are glitchy in the like the help system, for example. And you can see that I have it set to infinite persistence, and it's caught a glitch. It's taken this one probably an hour and a half to capture a glitch that this scope over here seems to be able to catch every, I don't know, 15 to 20 minutes. So it finally actually caught one. So the persistence on this scope is full on infinite, and you select things by dropping down and just pressing it. Whereas on this guy over here, it's set to infinite persistence too, so I can stop acquisitions and restart, clear it again, so we can see if there's any activity during this menu or during this film. And then on the DPO over here, let's see if we can catch one. It pretty much constantly thinks that there's something wrong with this signal. Of course, now that I'm looking at it, it's not going to show them for us, but it's way faster. There's one that just came up on the screen right there. All the time this one thinks there's something wrong with the signal, whereas this one, it takes minutes to know if there's something wrong, and this guy's virtually blind to it. And you notice, I don't know if the focus will work out on this or not, but at the top of the signal you can see kind of an indication of the waveform activity by how fast the little squiggly lines are actually going. And not too fast there, quite a bit more activity here. And on this scope, there's much more activity up there. And what's happening is Tech has what they generally Tech will say like this scope will do 200 waveforms per second. So it'll do 200 waveform captures per second, summarize it on the display. And so that probably works out to like say it's updating the screen 40 times per second. Well, maybe each time it's sending 5 waveforms superimposed over the top of the display over one another. And so that's how you get to see that summation of it to make 200 waveforms per second. And like in this signal, there's like 4.5 or 5 waveforms shown, or there's a glitch that just came up, 4 or 5 cycles shown on the display. If you were to multiply that by 200, that would give you approximately how many cycles you're seeing of a potential of 179,000 cycles. So you can see on this class of scope, you really don't see, you're only getting a slices of the waveform you're interested in. Another glitch just came up. This guy, it just doesn't really seem to ever catch glitches. I mean, I caught that one, and then I think yesterday I saw it catch one once. So it's at a severe disadvantage. Now when you get into the DPO scopes, They don't, like if this thing's, like if this scope, for example, is truly capturing 1 billion samples per second, that's like, say that's an 8-bit word per each, so that's like 1 gigabyte of data per second, right? Well, what's the scope actually doing with it? Well, if it's a similar class of waveform acquisition as the TDS7000 you would think that, well, apparently all you're really saving is, say 1,000 waveforms or 1,000 itinerations per second of this particular signal, so it must be throwing away all that other data, the other 178,000 waveforms that you didn't see on screen, since it's not capturing glitches. On the DPOs, however, they have a fast acquisition system where it's not so much the sampling rate, but it maintains a database of what's going on. In this case, this scope tech says it can maintain 5,000 waveforms per second. So we have, for example, 3.5 cycles on the display at 5,000. So it's actually looking at 15,000 cycles per second of a possible 179,000. And so it's more likely to see the glitches and stick them on the screen because it's maintaining a circular database. It's not doing reads and writes, it's constantly writing and constantly reading on the circular database, so it's much faster. And then, like, if you were to jump up to DPO 3000, I forget, like 30,000 waveforms per second, or 4,000 is 50,000, and I think the MDOs were something like the new, like the MDO 3000 is supposed to be like 180,000 waveforms per second. So you would expect that you would just be seeing constant glitch activity on the more powerful scopes. But a little disappointed in this in the TBS. It doesn't seem to it's pretty slow, but I get the feeling, the firmware is like beta as far as I can tell. It doesn't seem like it's complete yet. They got a ways to go on, and maybe they're going to be able to bump the speed up. I can't imagine that this scope has less capable chipset than this 2000-ish design here, based on really a 1995 design, the TDS 210s, 220s, 224s. So this is probably basically the same processing system on this, or acquisition system on the TBS1072B. You get the feeling when you're using this thing, though, that it's overwhelmed. Like if we slow this thing down, if we change the time base a lot, like right now I'm turning it and it's totally non-responsive. It's boggled. Right now it doesn't know. Come on, think something, do something. I mean, the signal's still there. I've just been playing with the time base, so it's pretty much, it's like locked up right now. Maybe if I hit the run stop, that brought it back. Maybe. Whereas on this guy, let's see if the difference is, if I play at the time base in the same manner, you can see the time base is, the display is overwhelmed right there, but you can see that by the time base indication down here, when I'm changing it, you can see that the scope is responding. When I go to 500 milliseconds, I get this kind of gap thing here going on. And this guy, which is completely unresponsive right now, it should be rolling and doing the exact same thing. It was doing it earlier. Let's see if I hit Autoset, so I get rid of the infinite persistence. Change the scale. Get it in the screen. Oop, it did more scale than I thought. Oh, well, we can live with that. Now if I go to 500 milliseconds, you can see it starts acting like the other one did. So it's not a, so I kind of think the acquisition system is the same between the two. It's just maybe there's so much firmware on this guy that it just can't handle it. And on the DPO, if you do the similar kind of, let's see, let me get it to adjust the light. You do the same thing with the time base until it finally goes to the roll mode. It's still an infinite persistence, so normally it wouldn't quite look like that. But anyway, there's no gap on it. So I don't know why there's that gap there. The 200 megahertz or the 200 waveforms per second on this isn't necessarily a bad spec on these. I mean, that's actually pretty good. The many of your scopes that don't have fast acquisition, they're doing good to do 120 waveforms per second. But the newer scopes are doing something, you know, they're newer technology, fast acquisition. It's a memory database is what's going on, and the other manufacturers, Fluke, or not Fluke no more, but say Agilent or who's the other one, LaCroix. They're doing similar things as well too, where they're building a database, an on-screen database, so that you will catch those events. Because I mean, literally, if this thing was truly showing you 1 gig of samples worth of data per second, can your eyeball capture that? It can't. So your only hope is that the scope points out that there's some anomaly happening, something that occurred, and in this class of a scope, whether it's this or the Raggles or, you know, there's a whole lot going on in the signal that your eye can't catch, and so you're relying on the scope to present that to you. And if you're using this sort of a scope, or especially this one, you'll never see that odd event. So a little disappointed in the performance on this guy. So some of the menus would be like you can play with the bandwidth. Control works by press it, but like if you wanted to, like, say change something again, intuitively I'd want to push it again, that menu'd come back. It doesn't, so you have to come back and go, oh no, I really wanted to be on DC. There you are. A couple of times when I was playing with these sweeps, and maybe I was in the zoom mode, you know, this would kind of boggle the memory too. And then a few times I would get some funky characters on the screen, like up in here, looked like they were something a programmer would want to see, you know, like maybe positioning information. But hopefully they're able to at least give this DPO-ish looking scope better acquisition speeds than this 15-year-old design. I mean, this thing seems pretty anemic when it comes to, I mean, the zoom feature's nice and the display's super nice, and I could see, like, if you're using it as a teaching scope, it'd be really nice, but I mean, this thing does a really bad job of detecting, you know, spurious events that this board's generating, which, by the way, is a Tektronix DPO, I think it's called a DPO-8 demo board. So and it's, this thing still has the minuscule memory of those guys. It has 2.5 thousand points of waveform memory. If we go out of there and we stop the acquisitions, if we move it horizontally, you can see it comes off screen, you know, just like it would on this guy. And on the DPO, of course, it has a longer memory, so if you were to stop the acquisitions like I just did, and then you remove your position control, you'd see that there's more waveforms there. Probably when it's doing its fast acquisition stuff, though, for example, I just started it again, it's only the screen that it's maintaining, the screen's width that it's maintaining database on. when you hit the stop button, then you can scroll around, and it's no longer database type information. I'm guessing anyway. Pretty sure that's how they do it. So we run that. So anyway, you hear a lot about sampling rates on scopes. This scope, without some sort of a fast acquisition system to really build some sort of a waveform database, this scope, even if it was a 10 gigasample scope, it would not be catching glitches, or at least not presenting them to your eye. And that's the real key. It has to make you aware that there's some sort of a glitch occurring. And the only way really to do that with the database system, or if they build a really smart scope one day that intuitively sees stuff and remembers it and tells you about it, because it actually understands. Whereas this guy with fast acquisition, it's constantly seeing glitches occurring on the screen. Like there was one right there. I played with the settings, the setting changes that you've seen, so it's no longer a semi-infinite persistence, so once a glitch comes up, it goes away in like a second. This thing does have additional functions. It has a counter where you can measure the frequency, like on channel 1, and the counter's telling you what the frequency is. It's actually any triggerable event that you define. It'll count that. Channel 2, there's no signal on it, so it's not doing anything. But the display is just really outstanding on this. I think it's the same displays they're using on the MDO3000s. It's really nice. It's really quite a bit better than what's on the MSO or the DPO3000s. It's pretty fantastic. Then you can do limit testing, where you build a template around, and then it tracks. It's slower than the TDS1000 or 2000Cs. What else is there? The counter, we saw a trend plot and data logging. I haven't done anything with either of them. Trend plot. I picked this scope up on eBay for, I think it was $300 plus $15 shipping. This guy I paid around $400 for, plus shipping, probably $25-30. This guy I bought from Tektronix as a refurbished instrument. It was, what was it, like $915. I think the retail on this is close to $900. So I mean, this is a like way better class of scope. If you're considered anything that's in the class of scope as a TDS2000, any generation, the DPOs simply will blow it out of the water. I mean, this thing is like way more powerful of a scope, and this is the thing you'd want to get. But people are always talking, on the various user groups about how expensive scopes are, Tektronix scopes on eBay, and it's not my experience. But then again, if you go out and say, hey, I have to buy it this very weekend, then yeah, you're probably going to spend a premium on it. But $300, $400, $900, and this is a really quite powerful scope. As far as the glitches that you're seeing on the screen, if you were to get like a TDS3000, it would show about half as many glitches. That's how much of an improvement the DPO2000 is over that type of technology. A 3000, a DPO3000 or MSO3000 would probably be, maybe 10 times more, 5 times more than this one. 4000, DPO4000 be 10 times faster, or more glitches shown, and the MDOs would be much faster, and so on. So, but at least at this one, you can probe a signal for 10 or 15 seconds and be pretty much assured that there's no glitches going on, at least random glitches. Something like this, you might want to stay there for 5 minutes or better. And something like this, from what I'm seeing, you might want to, wrong display, but for this guy, you might want to be on it for 45 minutes or an hour before you're convinced that there's no glitchy activity going on that signal line. And the thing is, if you're probing something like this, oh my god, look at all those places you could be probing. You could be there for a while with this scope. But the display is really nice. This would be a good scope for, I could see how they could make this scope, you know, teaching close. The education variant of this is the they're claiming the world's first, or maybe it's for the TBS1000. I don't know what they're claiming. It's the world's first education scope made for that. Got teaching resources built into it. Which actually this one got, yeah, so this must be the first one. And a little bit about these scopes. You know, this, like I say, this design came out around 2000. They're all pretty much the same. I mean, they did add the USB in the front and back on the B variants with the 1000B. When they went up with the 1000Cs, they completely did away with the monochrome version, the one TDS, like the TDS1000B. Thank God. Marketing held on to that as long as they could. And I guess they've gotten so much crap about crappy displays. Like, the forums were pretty ruthless on this scope about the crappy display. Well, actually, it's a pretty good display. They picked a really good font for it, and it is very usable. And you don't feel sorry for yourself at all when you're using it. But so the tech responds, and this scope has a fantastic display. Anyhow, hopefully there's something useful in this for you. The TBS1072B, kind of a humdrum scope but a totally refurbished user interface that still needs a little work, and a fantastic display. And I'll post again if they do something in one of their firmware revisions that bumps up the glitch capture capability of this, because it's really anemic. It can't see anything but what's going on constantly. Bye now.